Parker along with Nick Iverson.
I always wanted to play volleyball in college.
Cordova trying to dig it out of the board. And they score!
Hello and welcome to the Prep Zone. I'm your host, Matt Present here. I'm joined by Brenton Randolph of DMV Stream, Jacob Bogage of the Washington Post. Guys, how's it going?
Fantastic.
Pretty good, man.
All right, we're going to try something a little different this week.
Yeah.
Guys, best thing you saw this week in sports? Jacob, we'll start with you.
It's got to be the college football playoff national championship game. A lot of local talent in that one as well. Doreen O'Daniel, good council grad, wins a ring with Clemson. On the Alabama side, you had Deshaun Hand out of Woodbridge. Jonathan Allen on that defensive line he's going to be an absolute beast in the NFL out of Stonebridge. But Doreen O'Daniel takes home a title.
Well, I have one thing in common with Jim Harbaugh. I fell asleep at the end of the game.
Oh man.
Yeah, I'm confessing. I watched it later on. I've caught up.
You watched it, sure you did.
It was a great finish. Brian, the best thing you saw?
Oh man, for me, I'm gonna go over to the pros and the game between the Green Bay and the New York Giants, and obviously the stuff that led into it with Odell Beckham in the boat. I mean, I'm telling you, he shouldn't have got on the boat. I'm just saying.
Can't be the GOAT if you get on the boat.
Exactly.
Oh,
He'll never be the best of all time now.
Can't let it down. For me, it was Maryland, Indiana last night. A really good game. Anthony Cowan, a WCAC player, showing off last night. A bunch of Maryland freshmen playing really well. DeMonte Dodd coming into his own, so that was exciting. Maryland just squeaking by at the buzzer. But let's get into this show. Tell you guys what's on tap for today. A lot of basketball coming your way. Gonzaga and St. John's, two teams in the top 6 showing off last week. Bladensburg and Parkdale. Loudoun Valley against John Champ. A lot of recaps coming your way this week. Good Counsel, Georgetown Prep. Paul VI against Good Counsel. That was a girls matchup. Paul VI, they have not lost in a long, long time. We'll get to that upcoming. And then DeMatha and O'Connell. Annandale, West Potomac. We're previewing that along with O'Connell and St. Mary's Riken. So here's how to find us on today's show. You can find us a lot of different places. Facebook Live, we're streaming live, DMVSTREAM.COM. You can find us on demand and on local TV as well. But before we get into the meat of this show, and there's a lot to get to, BJ Kubarulis is going to tell you how to get your plays on our Top 10 Countdown.
Hello everybody and welcome to an all-new season of Top Plays here at AllMetSports.com and WashingtonPost.com. I'm BJ Kubarulis. Alright, like the previous 3 seasons, we're continuing our exciting interactive high school basketball show. A show that allows you, parents, coaches, players, and fans to send in your video submissions for ranking in our Top 10 style weekly show. Each week, we'll reveal the latest highlights, dunks, sweet assists, and bizarre happenings from across the region. All you gotta do is tweet me the link. I'm at BJKoob, and remember, you gotta hashtag it AllMets. You can send in your Huddle, YouTube, Vimeo, really any video link, and we'll consider it for use in the upcoming episode of Top Plays. Remember to tune in every Monday to see if your video made it at AllMetSports.com. We'll see you soon.
All right, guys, it's now time for the Weekend Rewind segment, and we start off with Gonzaga and St. John's, two really good teams in the WCAC playing each other early on in the season as we creep into 2017, and Gonzaga, Brenton, coming away with the win.
That's right, Matt. Like you said, this is 2 of the top teams in the WCAC and just 2 of the top teams in the DMV in general. St. John's was the defending champion of the WCAC, and both of these teams just have a ton of talent on both sides of the ball, such as Gonzaga's Chris Likes, who you're going to see here hitting that pull-up jumper. Likes is going to be going to the University of Miami next season, playing for Jim Larinaga, and he led the Eagles with 21 points in this game. And Gonzaga did a really good job of moving the ball around, such as Prentice Hub finding the big man inside for that basket there. And that's why they were able to get a 13-point lead in midway through the 4th quarter. But give St. John's credit, though, because they certainly didn't give up in this game, and you wouldn't expect the defending WCAC team to give up. But they made a comeback, and they brought it to within 4 points, but Chris Likes, like you saw there, just too much for them as the Eagles were able to get that victory.
He plays with so much attitude in his game, which is something I love. Is you see it on Twitter all the time, that hashtag hard over height. Kids 5'7" in the right pair of shoes, and doesn't faze him one bit.
Yeah,
Just an incredible talent. He gets that shot off so quick, and that really makes you respect it. He can go by you on the drive. Great player.
Right, and his Twitter handle is @IamLikesThat.
Yes.
So that's one of those things. That's how you know he has that swag right there. 'Cause
Absolutely.
It's like that every time he's on the court.
Well, he's featured on an episode we have here of Inside the Paint, so go ahead and check that out on our website, and you can take a look at the versatility he has in that game, that quick release, like you mentioned. But as Brendan said, going to Miami, he's had a really, really good season. Double-figure scoring in all 15 games. In this one, he had 21. And the other thing that he does really well, 85% from the free throw line.
Yeah, he's just a really consistent player, and it's helped by the guys he has around him. I mean, Gonzaga, they love to compare themselves to the Golden State Warriors, and you get that, Chris likes that Steph Curry type. Prentice Hub, he's so much more than a shooter, and he can get to the basket. He's a point guard by nature. I think he had 7 assists in this game. And he's physical. He's more physical than people give him credit for.
Right. Also, Prentice Hub had a complete game in this one. That's why he was our player of the game. He had like the 18 points, the 7 rebounds, and I think it was only 3 assists. But either way, just a complete player and on a team that's like just loaded with talent.
They just don't have bad days shooting the ball.
Right.
And you talk to Steve Turner, and they played Georgetown Prep and blew him out of the water, and we'll talk about Prep a little bit later. And I was talking to Steve. He said, Coach Steve Turner, and he said, maybe not our best night shooting the ball. They must have shot more than 50% from the field that night. I mean, they're such a consistent team. They play small, but they play so efficiently, and that is such an advantage for them, and it's something that gets Chris Likes in that groove.
Well, 13-2 on the season, #1 ranked by your Washington Post.
Yeah.
So we'll see if they can keep that ranking moving forward. But you talked about Georgetown Prep, and the expectations for them were pretty high this season. They got upset this week by Good Counsel.
They did, and that was a game that I was at. It was a great game. It came down to the wire. Mezio Forum scored 7 points in that game, none bigger than a three-pointer with like 12 seconds left. Gets a turnover, runs the floor, hits a 3 himself. This was the year, and it's less about Good Counsel and less about Georgetown Prep and that loss to Good Counsel, and more about what it means for the IAC and the WCAC, with the talent Episcopal brought back, with Donnell Frayer at Landon and how electric he is, with Georgetown Prep and how deep this team can go between Jared Bynum, Mezio Forum, Ike Nowicki. You expected maybe a little bit more out of the IAC against the WCAC, and then you see a team projected to maybe win the IAC, go into Olney, and lose to Good Counsel. It was a great game, and give Good Counsel credit. Tyler Baylor had 14 points. Allende Ely had 13. And they're both going to go play college football somewhere and be stars. You don't expect it on the hardwood necessarily, and you expect Georgetown Prep to get it done.
47-46 the final.
Yeah.
So a close game. It came down to the wire, but like you said, that you didn't expect that to be the result. So it'll be interesting to see, like you mentioned, how this kind of plays out moving forward. You look at the aforementioned Tyler Baylor with 14.6 coming from the charity stripe, but that dynamic of, is the IAC going to break through or not so much?
You'd like them to, and I mean, Brenton, it would be great to hear, who you've seen this year and how they stack up. The WCAC, without Markel Fultz, they're still really, without Markel Fultz, without Anthony Cowan, they're still really, really deep.
And no disrespect to those guys.
No, and not at all.
But there were guys who came before them that were just as talented,
Yeah.
and there are guys that are coming after them that are going to be just as talented.
And you see the talent in this league. It's not the top 6. It's all the way through, because Good Counsel, I think, was scraping with Carroll at the bottom of that division, and then played a really close game 2 nights before that. Hung with O'Connell for a little while after this game against Prep, and then comes out and beats Prep. Head coach wasn't even there that night. Head coach was traveling. Held Jared Bynum to 15. That's not an easy task. He's an electric scorer. When you attack the basket, when you play with the physical nature that the WCAC does, if you stay within yourself, you can be in any game. And I think it just proves why there is so much talent in this region.
More WCAC action on the way, but first we turn over to Bladensburg and Parkdale. Bladensburg, the 70-60 win last week, Brendan.
Yeah, that's right. Bladensburg and Parkdale. This is a matchup between two teams in the state of Maryland, and Bladensburg, coming into this game, only had one loss this season. They were about 8-1, I think, and Parkdale gave them pretty much everything they could handle, and maybe even more than that, as every time Bladensburg came down and got a bucket, it seemed like Parkdale was going to come back with their own bucket from their man Lonnie Lassane, who led the team in scoring with 22 points. As you see, the man's jam there by Daniel Oladapo, and sometimes it's a little bit better to be lucky than good, as this shot goes
Oh, no!
under the backboard and then into the basket. And that shot really just proves that it was Bladensburg's night. They had, 4 players score over 10-plus points, so they did a pretty good job of working the ball around and making sure that everybody gets involved. And even though this game was really close throughout the first 3 quarters, they were able to pull away in the fourth and get that 10-point victory.
Credit to Bladensburg, not just for the game. That's a beautiful gymnasium. That's
The video board, you saw it
The
make
video
for it,
board,
right?
yeah. And then the other thing is, a lot of these gyms have like the retractable baskets, which have the wire on top. If a shot comes off the backboard and hits that wire, it's out of bounds.
Right.
It's a big 3 points in a 10-point game.
I know, yeah, it was huge. And yeah, I mean, we'll talk about the player of the game as well, Daniel Oladapo, who is somebody that's been really just on fire. He's averaging somewhere close to 23 points per game this season, and you see the numbers there, 18, 12, and the 2 steals. So this is just a complete player who's been playing extremely well for Bladensburg, and we'll look to see if he can keep that up throughout the rest of the season.
Oladapo, not hard to remember that name.
Oh yeah, certainly not, and not to be confused with Oladipo.
Exactly.
Well, double-double. I mean, he certainly is showing what he's capable of, and it's not just that game, but he's doing this on a consistent basis.
Oh yeah, that's pretty much every night. Like, that's basically what you would come to expect out of Daniel Oladapo anytime that he takes the court. So he's definitely the leader for that Mustangs team.
All right, so we're going to have more WCAC to talk about, a few more games that we're recapping coming up. But first, we're going to take a look in our Coach's Corner segment with Flint Hill's Rico Reed. He's talking about his UCLA-influenced offense.
All right, at Flint Hill, what we try to do is we try to share the basketball, okay? And quite often, being a historian, John Wooden, coach at UCLA, one of the greatest coaches ever, offensively, he would run some things with his guys where he would create opportunities, multiple opportunities. Traditionally, we haven't been very big, so what we try to do is we try to spread the floor to bring the bigs away from the basket. We'll run a UCLA cut where our point guard will have the opportunity to try to create, pick a side, kick to a wing, step away, cut off on the UCLA cut. What happens there is then the next wing guy will replace. We get a screen here, come across, set another screen for a big to come through. This point guard eventually replaces, and then we'll also, with the screener, give him an opportunity to revert back to or replace where the basketball was, and we can also go with some high-low with our 2 bigs. For us, the best offensive play for us is a rebound, outlet, layup. That's the best play for Flint Hill.
Transition game, you want that outlet, you want that easy layup on the other end, Coach. I can't blame you. We're getting right back into it here on the Weekend Rewind segment. We're going right back to the WCAC, a great game from last night. DeMatha topping O'Connell by 2.
Yeah, there's a rivalry in the WCAC that dates back years now. This was billed as a test of bigs. DeMatha's Josh Carlton, O'Connell's Nate Watson, as you see. Ryan Allen hit the jumper there. He finished with 27. DJ Harvey for DeMatha, one of the top recruits in the country, finished with 19. It was billed as a battle of bigs. Instead, the guards took over. Ryan Allen scored 27. Matt Lewis for O'Connell scored 24. And it got decided on the perimeter. As you see the tip back there, maybe not something that Joe Wooten wanted for O'Connell. When you have a guy like Nate Watson, you want to be able to slow the pace down and go inside. real credit to DeBatha there that they're able to get the game on the perimeter, push the tempo a little bit more.
What did they do to make Watson uncomfortable? I mean, obviously he had 19, so he didn't have a bad game, but in terms of making O'Connell play their pace.
Well, it's hard to make a big guy like that feel that uncomfortable. What you saw there is Ryan Allen using a ball screen, draws Watson out and kind of makes him guard in between. That's on the defensive end. When you can push the pace like DeMatha can, and they lost a crucial guard in Justin Moore the other day out for the year, and we wish him well. When you can push the pace like that with Ryan Allen, who's a great ball handler, you know, how much does a big guy want to run the floor? Right. And Nate Watson's a great player, but if he can put 1 foot in the lane, 1 foot in the block, and say, give me the ball, that's a hard offense to stop. When he's got to run up and down the floor, you know, it's hard to get that position, and that's the difference between a 19-point game and a 23-point game. And if he has 23, you know, this one was 73-71. If he has 2 more points, we get a tie game. If he has 1 more point, it's an O'Connell win. So pushing that pace is something a lot of WCAC teams like to do. And when you have the guards like DeMatha does, it's something that really comes to their advantage.
Season high 27 for Allen, including 13 straight to end the first quarter, really taking over there. You've mentioned a lot of names, and just there's no doubting the talent on these two teams, but to give people a sense of these names, Ryan Allen's going to Delaware. DJ Harvey's going to Notre Dame. Matt Lewis is going to James Madison, and Nate Watson's going to Providence.
Yeah.
I mean, these are all D1 players going at it, and I mean, it really special game to watch.
Josh Carlton going to UConn as well. So,
yeah.
I mean, think about that. Think about 2 legacy Big East schools, UConn, Providence. I mean, you see them go at it in the lane. I mean, there is some contact down there. Right. Those are 2 big fellas. And for a game to be decided like this on the perimeter with 27 points from Allen, Harvey going inside, outside. You saw him with a putback there, a couple putbacks, and some really strong inside play, some rebounding. That's what creates the difference, is when you can go with tempo, but you can stand up inside the lane and go one and done on defense. That's what's going to get you a W.
DeMatha 12-1 on the season. O'Connell 10-6. Played very close. Obviously a 2-point game.
They were a really good 10-6.
Right,
yeah,
and
that's probably the story of the thing, because I actually, sorry to interject, but
no,
I saw them play in the game against Paul VI earlier this season, and that was another one of those games where they were down like 11 at halftime, but they just clawed back, and they like got it to where they won and even took the lead late in that game.
Yeah, I mean, they took a lead into the fourth quarter against Gonzaga.
Exactly.
I mean, I've talked with Joe Wooten about this team, and he said, we're not playing our best basketball yet. If you're 10-6 and playing like this against DeMatha, playing like you were against Paul VI, playing like you were against Gonzaga, I mean, that's the beauty of it. It's like a college conference.
It is.
You see everybody twice.
Right, and that's the beauty of it. Like you said, you want to see these teams again. You want to see these matchups again. And every coach is going to tell you they're not at their best in December and January, and every team's getting better throughout the season. But that's what makes the second matchup and the playoff matchup so much more enticing.
Well, we're going to preview O'Connell and St. Mary's Riken a little bit later. Both of these teams every loss has been a close game. It's incredible. And so I'm really looking forward to that one on Friday night.
All right, before we get to that, we got a couple more games to recap. Let's check in on Loudoun Valley, undefeated on the season. They took down John Champ and Don Fergala.
Yeah, that's right. This is one of the matchups between 2 of the Loudoun County teams. The leading scorer in the entire DMV in Don Fergala, who's averaging over 34. And even though he had 32 in this game, the game just belonged to Loudoun Valley. And one of the things that I came away impressed with when you talk about the Vikings is their ability to translate their defense into easy fast break points, like that turnover that you just saw. And that's one of the things that they just do a phenomenal job of, working the ball around and getting the best shot possible for their team. Like you can see here, Nick Ball, who finished with 23 points and had 15 in the second quarter alone. And they're just really good at doing basically everything. And they kind of put a lot of pressure on Don Fergala to try and keep up and try and score at their pace. And when Loudoun Valley has more players who are capable of scoring, whereas with John Champ, Don Pergala is pretty much the main show, and that's why Loudoun Valley was able to run him away.
Well, there's two ways to beat a zone, and the first one is ball movement, which you saw. You get an open three-pointer in the corner.
Yep.
The second one is you just beat them down the floor and don't let the zone set up, and you saw that there. I mean, if you can do both of those things consistently to a zone, especially one on the offensive end that's having trouble scoring, you're going to have a good night.
Oh, yeah.
Don Pergala averaging 36 points a game this season, held to 32.
Yeah.
So in the grand scheme of things,
Held to 32.
That's right. So
That's fantastic.
They kept the
They're
best
doing a good
player
job.
in check, and he doesn't have the supporting cast to match the depth of Loudoun Valley.
Well, Brenton, is he one of these players where he's just going to get his, you know, like
Oh,
you
yeah,
can,
yeah.
as you see, player of the game there, Nick Ball, 23 points, 15 in the second quarter. But Don Pergala, is he just one where he's going to fill up the box sheet, and you're just going to have to live with it?
Definitely. Every night, Don Pergala he's the main guy, and you know it's coming, and you know you have to stop it, but he's just not going to let you stop that. So at that point, you kind of have to cut your losses and hope that you can defend him as well as you possibly can, but you can't let anybody else score.
So is the win for Loudoun Valley more impressive to you because of Pergala's performance, or less impressive?
It's hard to say just because they won by so much, you know? Like, Don Pergala had 32 points, and he needed, 73 to win the game, so I don't know. It's tough to say, but yeah.
All right, one more game to get to, and it's a really, really good story. Paul VI girls, they haven't lost in 370 days. They're undefeated this season, and their most recent victim was Good Counsel, 71-44 the final. What an incredible team Paul VI has put
They're
together.
fantastic. I mean, 370 days ago, they lose to Good Counsel in Olney. It was a 2-point game. Not going to happen this year. The thing with Paul VI, and this will happen with just dominant teams, is that they go on an innocent 7-point run, and then all of a sudden there's a turnover and a layup, and then a stop on defense and a 3, and it jumps on you. Then all of a sudden you're on the bus wondering what happened. And that's kind of what happened to Good Counsel. I mean, it was a 7-point game at one point in the second, as you see Katie Klimkowitz puts the layup back in, and then Ashley Owusu, who had 23. That stroke is so pure. She can just reach out and put the thing in the bucket there. Michaela Vaughn, kick out, bang, another. Owusu had 4 threes. Just an incredible talent as a sophomore, believe it or not.
Yeah, sophomore with 23. You mentioned Vaughn. She's going to Notre Dame. Amira Collins going to Tennessee. So no shortage of talent on this team.
Yeah, and by the way, University of Maryland coach Brenda Fries, University of North Carolina coach Sylvia Hatchell, we were seat buddies last night. So they were in there watching that game as well. And Good Counsel, this is not a chump team. I mean, this is Chloe Chapman, who's going to be a top 30 recruit when she comes out, and she's only a sophomore. Lindsay Pulliam is going to Northwestern, another Big Ten player. 370 days ago, when Good Counsel beat Paul VI, Pulliam had 20 points. Last night she had 8. Chloe Chapman had 15. Last night she had 4. Tells you how far this Paul VI team has come in a year.
370 days and counting. We're moving on. We're going to go to our weekly fast forward segment, but first, we're spotlighting the Wakefield point guard, Alan Treacle.
He's been on the varsity team all 4 years of his high school career, and now it's really his team. I mean, it was last year, but this year it's really his team. So, I call him my third coach. So when we lose, I'm gonna blame him. So he knows that I'm putting a lot of pressure on him to get the other guys that aren't up to his ability to get better. And so it's on him to be that leader on the court, off the court. The younger guys need to see him. They need to, be around him in school, taking everything that they can from him. So, if my guys can follow Alan Treacle's lead, I think we're going to be pretty successful.
Being that third coach on the floor, I can direct guys to go to certain places and get our team in the offense and get us going. Say if I'm at the top of the key, wide open, I'm going to pass it to my man, Hello Parks in the corner for an open 3. So I know it's going in. Just moving the ball around, a lot of people say we're not disciplined, so we're going to prove them wrong, pass it wrong, find a good shot, feed the post, and not just gun it and shoot whenever.
All right, we're flying right along in this edition of the Prep Zone, and a good game coming up this week. A couple good games, but we'll start with Annandale and West Potomac, Brendan.
Yeah, Annandale, West Potomac, this is one of those matchups that is in the Nova area, and West Potomac has been just on fire to start this season off. They're 8-1 so far this year, and they've got one of the deepest teams just in the Nova area. They've got 4 players who are averaging over 10+ points per game, and they've got a 5th guy in Dejan Belfield who's not far behind with 9.8 points per game. So really just 15 point away from having 5 guys that are averaging 10 points a game. And you just never know who is going to have the hot hand on a given night for the West Potomac Wolverines, and that's what makes them such a difficult team to beat. Over on the other side, Annandale, you have a better sense of who their leaders are, and one of them is their guard, Dante Johnson, who is averaging close to 21 points per game, and they've got 2 other players who are averaging double digits in Jordan Adams, who's close to 14, and Matthew McIver, who's averaging 11.2. And even though Annandale's close to, 500 there, I'd expect this to be a pretty interesting game.
Yeah, don't sleep on Annandale. They can move the ball in a hurry, and if they're going to run, it's hard to put a stop to.
All right, one more game to get to, but first we're going to check in with Alex Harris going inside the paint with Luka Garza.
All right, so what we're going to see on this play is let's go ahead and let it roll a little bit. We're going to see that ball swing to the opposite wing over there. Now, Luke does something, pause right there, that I actually like, and it may look lazy, but I don't think it is. I think it's smart, and it shows his basketball IQ. He actually stayed on that block and did not flash across the lane. So let's go ahead and play and let it roll a little bit. We're going to come back. Now, boom, stop right there. So because he didn't flash across, he actually is able to seal his man and get that defender right on his hip, right on that block. Now, let's go ahead and roll it a little bit further. Now, he's not working that hard to post up because the defense isn't working that hard to get around him. So that post defense needs to get around him. You cannot let a kid this big get that kind of position. It's too easy down there. So as we can...
All right, for the rest of that segment and all the segments with Alex Harris, really, really good stuff. Go to our website, DMVSTREAM.com. One more game to get to that we're previewing for this upcoming week. O'Connell and St. Mary's Riken, 2 10-win teams going at it.
Yeah, we mentioned this game a little bit earlier. These are both teams that have played very close games. It's going to be a contrast of styles. We know what O'Connell likes to do. Matt Lewis on the inside, Matt Lewis on the outside, Nate Watson on the inside. A little fire and ice game, and they'll hit you both ways. St. Mary's Riken loves to push the pace. Winston Tabbs averaging 15.7 points a game, will get the ball up the floor. Chris Green, who kind of plays like a stretch power forward for them, he's a great shooter, 8.4 points per game. He's been a little streaky. He'll look to be more consistent. It'll be a great contrast of styles, and I think it'll be a good litmus test of what the back end of the season is going to look like in the WCAC. St. Mary's Riken isn't one of those traditional powers, but boom, I love that alley-oop. I saw that on the pre-show, and it doesn't get old. And it'll be a great game. I'm really looking forward to it.
You got a winner?
I like O'Connell. I think Matt Lewis is better than people give him credit for, and I think Nate Watson's the best big in the conference.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go with O'Connell too. Like, they've been, like we mentioned earlier, just on the cusp of getting one of these big wins. Like, they played DeMatha to a 2-point game. They forced Paul to 6 to overtime, and these are some of the best teams, just not in the WCAC, but in the DMV and possibly even in the nation. So O'Connell is like right there, and I think this might be the win that, gets them over the hump.
That said, it's a long bus ride to go from Vienna to Southern Maryland. So, home court advantage in high school hoops, it means something.
Well, a jam-packed show today. So much fun. Brenton Randolph, Jacob Bogage, thanks so much for joining me. We will see you guys next week on the Prep Zone.